Hello, everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. And we are continuing on with the implements guide for the occultist class out of the first edition Pathfinder. And I figure I'm going to try to emphasize or clear up which edition I'm talking about for the various games we cover here on the channel, just to help avoid any issues. Had one kind of crop up a couple of days ago with another commenter. Nothing bad, it's just always a good idea to try to provide a little bit more clarity where possible. After all, that's the goal of these guides. And speaking of clearing things up for the occultist, covering implements and the like, implements are how you access your spellcasting powers, as well as the focus powers that you can gain by selecting implements from different schools and investing your focus points into those implements. Some you will get just right off the bat for learning a particular implement school. Others you gain by investing the points into, and others you select as you learn and develop. So, to that end, we are covering evocation, and evocation implements are gloves, rods, staves, and wands. And the resonant power that you gain for each time you put focus into an implement is intense focus. The implement intensifies evocation spells, able to deal damage. By using the implement as an additional focus, the spell is able to deal more damage of the same type to every creature it's able to affect, by one for every 2 focus points you've invested into the implement, maxing out at a rate of 1 plus 1 for every 2 occultist levels that you have. So by level 10, you're going to be looking at 6 points of additional damage to your damage dealing evocation spells. So things like Fireball, Lightning Bolt, those will increase in their damage output. And that damage will reflect the type of damage that the spell normally puts out. So for Fireball, it's 6 more points of fire damage. Lightning Bolt will be 6 more points of electric damage. And then going on from there, for the base power that you get just for learning to use evocation implements, you get Energy Ray. It's a standard action to use it, and it provokes attacks of opportunity. And you spend 1 focus point in order to fire an Energy Ray as a ranged touch attack. This has a range of 30 feet and deals energy damage equal to 1d6 plus 1d6 for every 2 occultist levels beyond first. So it'll deal 2d6 points of damage at 3rd, 3d6 at 5th, and it maxes out at 10d6 at 19th level, so equivalent to a Fireball or Lightning Bolt spell, since those are the examples we are going along with. And so when you fire the ray, you have to select what type of energy it is: acid, cold, electricity, or fire damage, which gives us some versatility here, considering that fire resistance is one of the most common types of resistances. And for our build, this is an okay ability. It doesn't hurt us that its range is so short at 30 feet, because we're looking at being a melee build anyways. But it's really not quite what we're going for. It's not bad to have if you need to reach someone a little bit more important that's just outside of your reach, but, again, not what we're really going for here. And then after that, we come to the focus powers that you select as you level up and advance as an occultist, that is. And the first one on the list here is Energy Blast. It's a standard action to use it, and it provokes attacks of opportunity, and you have to use 2 points of focus in order to unleash this blast of energy. This will have a range of 100 feet and deals 5d6 points of damage, plus an additional 1d6 for every 2 occultist levels beyond 5th. So 6d6 at 7th level, maxing out at 12d6 for 19th. The blast deals damage to each creature within a 20-foot radius. Reflex save allowed for half damage. You choose if it's going to deal acid, cold, electricity, or fire damage, and you have to be at least 5th level to select it. So much like Energy Ray, this is a pretty solid spell. The fact that once you hit 19th, it's going to be dealing 12d6 points of damage is nice. The fact that you have some flexibility in the type of damage that you're doing, whether it's acid, cold, electricity, or the aforementioned fire, is really good. It lends some versatility. But that's not really the focus of our build. And the range is nice, the range is generous, and if you don't really have a whole lot of options in combat, or at least nothing where you can engage in melee, then using Energy Blast will be a solid backup choice. One thing that I should mention, though, now that I'm thinking about it, melee build and whatnot, if you're going with more of a spellcaster build where you're leaning into being able to use spells and you want to be able to blast, picking up evocation then will be much more important than it is for a melee oriented build, because these abilities allow you to keep in the fight longer than you otherwise would be able to. Bear in mind, occultists are limited spellcasters. They are only two-thirds spellcasters, meaning they top out at 6th level spells. They don't get to go up to 9th level like summoners, wizards, clerics, sorcerers, witches, etc. So using your evocation abilities will be massively helpful for your damage output, especially since these ones allow you to switch up what kind of energy damage you're doing, appropriate to the resistances and weaknesses of the opponents you're facing. So, in that instance, the evocation school gets to be massively much more useful for those builds. But since we're looking at melee, we can afford to kind of skip by these because this isn't really where we're wanting to be spending our focus points. We'll get to that implement school in the next episode, though. And then going on from Energy Blast, we come around to Energy Ward. Such creative naming with these abilities. I knock it a little bit just because it is kind of funny, but I don't know that I could be much more creative some days. As a standard action, you expend 1 focus point to ward yourself. You choose acid, cold, electricity, or fire once again, and gain resistance 10 against that type of damage. In addition, any melee or natural attacks made against you cause the attacker to take 1d6 points of that damage. So if you select cold for 10 points of cold resistance, any cold-based damage coming your way, say a frost dragon breathes fire on you, breathes ice on you, good lord, then you're going to subtract 10 points of damage from that. If that dragon claws you, you'll deal 1d6 points of cold damage to it. Well, in theory. Its own resistances might get in the way of that a little bit. Anyways, attackers with reach weapons don't take this damage, so somebody hitting you with a spear will not be affected by this ability. At 13th and 19th level, the resistances will increase by 15, maxing out at 20. This lasts 1 round per occultist level, and you have to be 7th level to be able to select this power. This ability is kind of okay. If you're really going to be taking a lot of elemental damage of a specific type, cold, any of these 4 types listed here, then, it's going to be useful for that encounter. But that's going to be situational, and that's going to be dependent on your ability to know what you're walking into. And then the fact that opponents attacking you can potentially take damage, that's nice, but there's a lot of creatures with the ability to reach out there, and this doesn't do anything for you against ranged attackers. An ogre hitting you with a spear, hell, a human, elf, or whatever normal-sized creature hitting you with a spear will not be taking this bonus damage that's coming out from successful attacks. And the resistances, while again nice and useful, especially since we don't have the most hit points in the world, it's still not a whole lot. You have better options for warding yourself against this kind of damage. So, it's useful in a pinch situationally, but you have better options. And then, speaking of better options, we also come to Light Matrix. As a standard action, you expend 1 focus point to create a swirling globe of light. This brightens an area as per the light spell and will hover over your shoulder, moving with you as you move. You can use a move action to direct the orb up to 30 feet away, but will return to you instantly if it moves further than this, or if you move away from it. And then at 5th level, you can command the Light Matrix to attack a target. If the Light Matrix hits, the target has to make a fortitude save or be blinded for 1d4 rounds by a brilliant bright light. If the attack hits, regardless of if the target fails its save or not, the light matrix will end. Now, it does last for a generous amount of time at 1 hour per occultist level. You can't have more than one light matrix in effect, though, and creating a second one will immediately end the first, though it does refresh the timer on how long it's lasting for. This is the fact that it can attack and potentially blind a target is nice, but especially when you get to higher levels, a lot of creatures have resistance, well, not resistances, but high fortitude saves. And really, you have the light spell in your class spell list, so you have better means of creating light that are not going to be burning up your focus points, which are really, really, really precious. It's a very limited resource, and you're better off using a spell slot rather than a focus point. So this is an ability you can safely skip. And then we come to Radiance. This one's a little bit better. As a standard action, you can expend 1 focus point to make a weapon glow brilliantly. It produces light like a torch, and for the purposes of spells and abilities like darkness, this counts as a light spell of 0 level plus 1 level for every 2 occultist levels you possess. This light lasts for 1 minute per occultist level. In addition, when a critical hit is scored with the weapon, the wielder can choose to end the effect and cause the target to be wreathed in a bright light for 1d4 rounds. While illuminated, the target cannot benefit from concealment, invisibility, or use stealth checks to avoid being seen, and all attack rolls will receive a +2 circumstance bonus to hit. So this ability is actually pretty solid. This is kind of cool. It's going to be very useful, especially for a melee build. It may not be the first thing you go for, but because we are building into melee and this does not have a level requirement for selection, you can pick this up whenever you feel like. And honestly, stopping a target from using invisibility and the like, that is useful. And then we come up to Shape Mastery. As part of casting an evocation spell with an area of effect, you may use a number of focus points, max your intelligence modifier, to exclude a number of squares from the area. So if you have a +4 intelligence modifier, you can exclude 4 squares from the area of effect. So again, for an evocation, a blasting focused occultist build, this is super useful. You can fire this into a melee and not have to worry about hitting the paladin, the fighter, the rogue, whoever. But for us, since we're going to be in the melee and we're not really focused on a whole lot of blasting, this is okay to kind of skip over. And another one that you're probably going to be safe skipping over is Wall of Power. You use a standard action and use 1 focus point to create a wall of pure energy in length equal to 5 feet for every occultist level. It's a 10-foot high wall and 1 foot thick. It doesn't block movement, line of sight, or line of effect, but it deals damage to any targets passing through it. The wall deals 2d6 points of damage plus 1 point for every occultist level. You select acid, cold, electricity, or fire when you create the wall. It must be straight and can't pass through a creature's space when you're creating it, and it lasts 1 round per level. You have to be 9th level to select this power. The damage is limited. It's nice that it's got that variable ability, and it doesn't really do a whole lot to stop enemy spellcasters from being able to hit targets with spells. So it's not really great for crowd control. It's not great for damage output, although the fact that it just lasts for rounds. If you're knocking targets back and forth through it, then yeah, you could probably rack up some damage with it. But I wouldn't count on it for that, and I wouldn't rely on it for that. I can think of only a handful of situations where this will be really effective for you. And then we come to Illusion Implements. Illusion Implements are crystals, hats, masks, prisms, and rings. And the resonant power you gain for putting focus into an illusion implement is distortion. The implement begins to distort the image of the bearer, protecting them from harm. As a standard action, you gain a concealment mischance equal to 5% for every focus point you put into the implement, and it goes up at a rate of 5% plus another 5% for every 2 occultist levels you have, until you make an attack. At 50%, it doesn't increase any further, but you do gain invisibility. Creatures with see invisibility and true seeing will ignore this mischance, but this is a pretty nice ability. And if you're going with a build that's more of a support caster kind of build, you can potentially have this last for a very, very long time. And bonus, you can even use it while you're sleeping. So, uh, your DM may have to adjudicate a little bit because technically a sleeping creature is helpless to somebody that's standing over them and attacking them, but the mischance might help a little bit, or at least I'd make the argument that it would. And then from there, the base power you get just for picking up the illusion school is minor figment. As a standard action, you spend one focus point to create a minor figment. This will work either as ghost sound or minor image, and it lasts a number of rounds equal to your occultist level. At 7th level and higher, the figment will last for minutes equal to your occultist level, and you can cause the figment to change one time in its duration when a specified condition occurs. What that is pretty flexible, so you can definitely get a little bit of use out of this one. This is minorly useful. I mean, it doesn't hurt, especially since it's not anything that you have to select as you advance in level and gain different focus powers. This is something that you get just for picking up the illusion school. So that makes it not hurt all that much. It's not going to be detrimental to you overall. But neither is this going to give you a whole lot of immediate mechanical benefits. I can think of plenty of roleplay situations where this could be very useful and entertaining, but mechanically, it's a bit iffy. And definitely depends on your DM working with you a little bit. And then from there, we come to Cloak Image. As a standard action, you expend one focus point to hide your appearance behind an illusion as per the Disguise Self spell. It lasts 1 minute per occultist level, and at 5th level, you can expend 2 focus points to appear as a creature of a different type, but must remain the same size. And then at 7th level, you can use 1 more focus point to target a willing creature with this ability. So at minimum, you'll spend 2 focus points or 3 if you want to change their type. The creature type, that is. So going from humanoid to something more draconic, but staying medium size, something to that effect. Again, useful, but then again, you get Disguise Self as part of your spell list, so it's a little bit redundant and maybe not where you want to spend a lot of your focus points. That said, though, from beyond a mechanical standpoint, I can see a lot of potential for roleplay with this one. Also, this kind of leans into the same idea with the evocation power list, that this will help you broaden out your spell casting options a little bit. If you're not wanting to burn up all your spell slots using Disguise Self, you can use this to help disguise yourself or other creatures. And then we have Color Beam. Now, Color Beam is a standard action to use, and you need 1 focus point to make a ranged touch attack and unleash a beam of scintillating colors at one target within 30 feet. If it hits, a target with less hit dice than you will be blinded for 1 round. More hit dice than you, and it's dazzled instead. There's a will save to negate the effect, and the target is immune to the effect for 24 hours, regardless of if it's saved or not. So you can see why this is awful. While blinded or dazzled are still useful debuffs to have, it's only for 1 round, and the target's immune after, so you can't keep hitting them with this, although doing so repeatedly burns up a lot of focus points. So really, you're better off skipping this. You have better ways of inflicting these different status effects, or letting somebody else in the party do it overall. Even if you're leaning into being a spellcaster, this is not a great use of your abilities. And speaking of not a great use of your abilities, we come up to Masquerade next. Standard action to use and 1 focus point to take on the appearance of another creature that you touch. If the creature is not friendly to you, this requires a touch attack, but the target doesn't get a saving throw to negate this effect. You gain a circumstance bonus equal to 10 plus your occultist level, but only to look like the creature touched. This doesn't stack with spells like Polymorph or Disguise Self. You can change your appearance by touching another creature while the power is in effect using a standard action. This lasts 10 minutes per occultist level, so a pretty generous time limit on it, and can be renewed by spending another focus point. You must be 7th level to select this power. Mechanically, again, not great. You have better options than this, and really Disguise Self is probably going to be better all the way around. But I don't know. This power just, it's not great. I mean, the fact that you can look like another creature is useful, but again, you can use Disguise Self to do that. So you're better off skipping this altogether. Then we have Mirage, another standard action and one focus point to use to cover an area in an illusion and change its appearance. You can affect a 5-foot cube area for each occultist level that you possess, altering it in a way natural to the surroundings, so it'll fit, per your GM's discretion. This functions as the major illusion spell, and creatures interacting with it in any way gain a will save to see through it, and you have to be 5th level to select this power. I mean, this isn't bad. You affect a pretty sizable area all the way around, but, you know, it's probably not going to be the first thing we leap towards for different focus powers to pick up. And really, the illusion school is kind of more hit or miss rather than hit for us, especially for this particular build. But the next ability listed here is definitely something that's useful to builds all the way across the board, even melee builds like ours. We have Shadow Beast. It's a standard action, like everything else here, and uses one focus point to summon one or more beasts comprised of shadow. Works as the shadow conjuration spell, but can only mimic summon monster spells up to summon monster 9 at 17th level. Creatures created via this spell deal 50% damage to disbelieving targets, and only have a 50% chance of affecting these targets. You have to be 9th level to select this, but the fact that you get to mimic summon monster is incredible and makes the illusion implements well worth picking up, if only for this ability alone. And you get distortion just for investing points into an illusion implement. So, I mean, you know, that's 2 useful abilities right there. 2 mechanically useful abilities. Now, the fact that the targets, if they disbelieve that these shadowy summoned creatures are real, then, you know, definitely reduced effectiveness. But even the fact that they're on the battlefield potentially doing damage, some targets believing that they're real, others not, that's still going to sow chaos, confusion, and potentially get your opponents to waste a lot of attacks on figments, on illusory creatures that can still actually harm them. So this is a very nice ability all the way around. And then next we have Unseen. It's another standard action to use and one focus point to become invisible as per the invisibility spell. Lasts 1 minute per occultist level, and you can spend 2 focus points to target a willing adjacent creature. You can still see any of the creatures you've made invisible with this power. If the invisible creature makes an attack or takes an action that would otherwise end the invisibility effect, as per, you know, the invisibility spell, you can immediately expend another focus point to maintain the invisibility if the creature is within 30 feet of you. You have to be 3rd level to select this power, and of course, see invisibility pokes its way through this, as well as true seeing, which limits its usefulness. And really, again, invisibility, you have better ways of making people invisible than burning your focus points. Save your focus points for shadow beasts. That's a much better use of your time. So these are all the implement abilities for illusion, and we've covered evocation now. Next is necromancy and transmutation. And that should about wrap everything up as far as the implement schools go. And that'll be next Saturday's episode. I apologize for the drastically late upload here, but, well, life finds a way. The chaos of having a nearly 3-year-old and a 3-month-old definitely does a lot to liven up one's schedule and leave things a little bit uncertain. Hopefully in the future I will stick to the 5 o'clock upload routine. I thank you so very much for your patience and putting up with me. If you enjoyed today's video, go on down there, hit the like button, and let me know in the comments down below. Or if you disagree with me or just didn't like the video and you want to leave your critique, your thoughts, snide remarks, please still hit dislike and go down there and let me know what you thought. The only way to get better is to well, one, practice, which I'm doing, but also getting that feedback. That's important. But if you did enjoy today's video, then good news for you. There are going to be 2 more popping up over here. The first is something the almighty, all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-seeing Google rhythm has decided that you will enjoy. The other one is just something else I've done here recently that, hell, I think is going to be pretty fantastic for you. And if this has not been your first stop here at the Gamers Den, then go on down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member. Be notified each time I upload more content here to the channel. But once again, I've been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Thank you all so very much for your time, and you all have yourselves a good night.